In tonight's video, I will be sharing 3 stories. A story of an addicting game, a doll with malicious intent, and a glitch in the matrix passed off as an odd occurrence. A huge thank you to the writers. Remember, you can send in your own story to rylhstories@gmail.com. If you enjoy the video, likes and comments are always appreciated. Subscribing if you're new is as well. Enjoy the video, and as always, I hope you all have a great night. My work buddy Aaron is my best friend. We met on the job 5 years ago, both training at the same time in graphic design, and then 3 years later we took the leap and started our own design company. The studio is beautiful, modern graphic patterns across the concrete softened by living walls, and softly painted abstract art. We have clients from all over the world, and at 25 years old, we're living the dream. Our art is digital, and as such, in the rare free time that we get, we enjoy PC gaming. It was something we found in common early on that just solidified our friendship. In the uni days, we'd spend hours trying to defeat each other at a huge variety of games. Despite the cool pretense of our studio, we're true nerds at heart. World of Warcraft was our absolute favorite. As the years have gone on, we get less and less time to game. Both of us have girlfriends and homes, and I have a beautiful 6-month-old daughter to look after. My little family is my world. Aaron will always be my best friend, but I can't spend hours raiding dungeons on the PC anymore. A few days ago I was chilling at home with my girl. We were watching a movie on Netflix, and having a takeaway while our baby was at my mom's for some nana time. Aaron texted me really excited. "I just got this new game called Spirit of Fear. You're going to love it, man, it's so good. Download it now, no excuses." My girlfriend saw the text over my shoulder and smiled at me. The ending credits of our movie was rolling. "You can if you want, you know. I'm going to have a nice baby-free bath, so you may as well relax," she said. I texted Aaron back, turned my PC on, and downloaded the game. It was made by a brand new company and was mega cheap at $10.99. I could see him on a leaderboard of players sitting at position 189. Of course, just over 2K players. It also showed you how many hours the player had clocked on the game. Aaron had been playing for 3 hours, and had done pretty well to rank where he had. The game was unusual. It was a fantasy adventure style game, where you play as a character named Delictus, battling hundreds of creepy creatures that ran on all fours, kind of like a dog but had human flesh and extra limbs growing from strange parts of their bodies. The farther you got, the stranger and larger the enemies became. The aim was to reach the end of a cursed forest known as the Endless Abyss. It wasn't multiplayer, which was odd for Aaron to be into, but was a passable game and entertained me for a few hours. I collected crystals and other magical items to aid in my journey, and made it to the top 300 players, but eventually tiredness kicked in, and I went to join my girlfriend Kate in bed. Just before I switched off my PC, I checked the scoreboard and Aaron had reached 122, and had been playing solidly the whole time. He had now clocked 5 hours. I laughed to myself about what a nerd he is. The next morning I got up, showered, dressed myself in jeans and a printed shirt with smart shoes, kissed my girlfriend goodbye, and hopped in my car to work. I was running a bit late, but it didn't matter. Aaron was always early, and I knew he'd have the coffee machine heating up already. We had a huge meeting that morning about a high-value contract we were vying for. I arrived at work and the studio was all locked up. Odd. Maybe Aaron had been stuck in traffic, or was running late too. I got in and switched on the coffee machine. Priorities. Then started prepping for the big meeting. An hour went by before I noticed that Aaron still wasn't there. I had no phone calls and no messages. Our intern, Rita, had turned up and was already working. Rita was always late. We had even floated firing her for it, but she was a hard worker when she did arrive, so we kept her on. Her being in half an hour into work before Aaron had even texted me got me worried. Maybe he had been in a car accident or something. I decided to give him a call. We had 20 minutes until our meeting arrived, and Aaron had been pushing for this contract for the better part of 6 months. The guy loved him, and I had been mostly in the background of this one. Whatever was keeping him needed to be good. He answered the phone after a single ring. What's going on, man? I need you here right now.
I'm sorry, Jay. I'm just not feeling myself. I won't be coming to work today.
Aaron stated. His voice was monotonous and flat. It sounded like he was just going through the motions. He'd struggled with depression for a while in the uni days, and I worried that may have hit. I had been distracted with my new baby. Maybe I'd missed the signs. Is there anything I can do for you? Have you spoken to the doctors?
I'm sorry, Jay. I'm just not feeling myself. I won't be coming to work today.
He repeated, in the same flat, monotone voice. There was no discussion, nothing coming after, just dead air meeting my ears through the speaker. Aaron also never called me Jay. Always man or buddy or some other variation, but never my actual name. This wasn't like him at all. Okay, man, well, I really hope you feel better. I'll let you know how the meeting goes. Hopefully I don't blow this contract for you. I responded a little peeved, but mostly concerned for his well-being. The guy I knew had fought so hard for this contract. He'd have made it to this meeting on his deathbed if he had to. He was the charmer of our partnership, and he knew it.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. I will take your advice and contact a doctor.
Just like that, he put the phone down. No goodbye, silly comment about my acquisition skills, or even a fake cough to make it better. Something was definitely wrong. Maybe I'd pop around to see him tonight after work. I was there through his struggle in uni. Maybe I could pull him out of this funk. The day went pretty smoothly. I let Rita sit in on the meeting, and the head of the other company took quite a shine to her. She is full of great ideas, and so smart despite only being 18. I'd like to think that's what he recognized. But I feel her classically stunning looks and natural charm might have been a factor. We got the contract regardless. I rushed home that night to grab some beers from the fridge and head over to Aaron's to cheer him up. I hadn't scheduled any other meetings that day, due to the big one, so I made it home quite early. As I breezed back from the fridge and into the living room, I caught sight of my PC in the corner of my eye, and the urge got the best of me. I sat down, logged in a spirit of fear, and went to the leaderboard to see if I had maintained my spot in the top 300. I didn't manage to check because Aaron's online name caught my eye first. He was in the top 50 players, and had clocked a grand total of 23 hours. The absolute Judas had ghosted the biggest meeting of our careers so far, to play some stupid game about an enchanted forest. He hadn't even attempted to get an hour of sleep. I was pretty angry. I closed the PC, popped open one of the beers, and settled in for a chilled family evening with my beautiful girls. That idiot was probably frantically gaming when he spoke on the phone. I wasn't going to waste my time on him, and I was too angry to confront him then. I decided I'd speak to him at work the next day, when I was calmer, and he'd have crashed and woken up and realized what a prick he'd been. I ignored my computer the whole night. I didn't even want to think about it. I was focused on what I was going to say to Aaron the next day. My girlfriend tried to calm me down, but I still struggled to sleep, stewing over it. Aaron didn't turn up for work the next day either. I knew he wouldn't, because when I checked in the morning, the clocked hours on Spirit of Fire had reached 38. My position had rapidly dropped. Aside from those few hours the first night I hadn't touched the game, and thousands more people had started playing. I was ranking somewhere in the 4000s, but Aaron had remained in the top 50. I did start to really worry at this point. He hadn't slept in at least 38 hours, and all for some stupid cheap game that wasn't even his usual type. But I had to go to work. Someone had to keep our business thriving, and let Rita in. About midday I got a call from a distressed Kate. She had Aaron's girlfriend, Melina, at the house. She had just come from Aaron's place. They don't live together, but she has a key, and hadn't heard from him, so when she had arrived and found him sitting in his own urine at his PC, a huge argument ensued. Kate said that when Melina had tried to challenge him about basic hygiene, and skipping work, that he'd gone mad. He hadn't argued back at all, not saying a word until she touched his shoulder. He reacted by jumping off his chair, and hitting her so hard she flew across the room. Melina was sitting in my living room with a black eye. I canceled all my appointments and closed up shop. I didn't know what to do. Aaron loved this girl so much. He'd spoken to me about marrying her. He would never want to hurt her. This wasn't his character. He got mouthy after a few too many, but never violent. I rushed home and Melina was beat up bad. She said he'd only hit her once, but you could see how much force it was with. The poor girl's eye was so swollen she could barely open it. Kate was seething. She wanted to go over there and kill him herself, but Melina seemed shaken by his behavior. I don't think this is him, she whimpered. It's like he's someone else completely. He didn't even sound like him. You just don't want to believe that absolute. I had to cut Kate off. No, I know what she means. He didn't sound like him on the phone yesterday. The way he spoke was all formal and off. I shared the leaderboard with them, including Aaron's now 45 hours of gameplay. Almost 2 days solid on a game, now confirmed to be without toilet breaks. Something was seriously wrong. Aaron's longest streak on the computer was 7 hours as a teenager on World of Warcraft. This was something different entirely. I had to go and see him. I left Melina at our place with Kate, and drove straight over to Aaron's with his girlfriend's spare key, and the complete lack of a plan. I didn't need the spare key. The door was unlocked, and there he was sat facing his PC. The game had changed significantly from what I saw. The creatures weren't scary anymore, or running like deformed humanoid dogs. They were beautiful beings surrounded by bright rings of light, in the impossibly colorful forest. The character was dripping with gold armor, and seemed to be in complete control of the light beings. Every now and again, a plant would extend a vine in an attempt to trip the character up, but the light beings were there to save you. It looked like he had to be nearing the end of the game. Jay, why aren't you playing? We could have so much fun. Jay said in a monotonous voice, not breaking eye contact with his computer. What's wrong with you, man? Why did you do that to Melina? You need to turn that computer off and get in the shower. It stinks in here. And it did. The ammonia from the pee he was soaked in penetrated even the walls of the room. It was gross. His lack of personality and seeming lack of free will was starting to creep me out. Aaron still didn't break eye contact with the game. His fingers didn't stop frantically touching the different keys, as if Spirit of Fear was a Beethoven masterpiece. But he did speak. I can't stop, Jay. My veins have become part of the forest now. I will be the first human to reach the end. At the end, I will be set free. If I am set free, I can leave this place. This endless abyss. It looks oh so lovely, but really it's just trickery. The darkness is coming for me and it won't let me leave. As soon as I looked for too long, I connected. As I was listening to his ramblings, I noticed what looked to be blood coming from near the mouse. My first thought was that he'd worn his skin away clicking, but what became clear was far worse. Spouting from the veins in his wrist were 2 cables, one for each arm, stretching like a thick vine in the jungle, all the way to behind the computer screen. He was literally connected to this virtual forest. My eyes wandered to the screen again, where the pretty light beings had changed into something horrific. They took the shape of something no standard earthly game could. Aaron's little sister who was murdered walking home after school many years ago. Except her face was twisted. She didn't look warm or friendly like the real her had been. She looked dark and vicious, like she could hurt you even through the screen. My heart pounded. I've never been more terrified in my life. I tried to grab hold of Aaron's arm and pull out the cable, but the second my skin made contact with his, he grabbed hold of my arm and twisted it backwards. The cable seemed to extend as he moved, and adjust to fit him. He didn't break eye contact with the screen once, watching as his evil computerized sister lost health, while his character plunged a sword into her repeatedly. I was terrified. I'm not proud to say I left, but I did. I got out of there, locking the door behind me and my best friend in with some cursed game, in a complete lack of sanity. A cursed game. Maybe I was losing my mind. This was stupid. I'd seen articles come out about Spirit of Fear in our gaming circles, during these few days claiming the game was addictive and nerve-wracking. The reviews may have used the term addictive, but there was nothing about losing the ability to fulfill basic toilet needs. Nothing to suggest the game was off at all. And besides, I was fine. I decided to try again, see if I'd missed something. When Kate went to bed and Melina was asleep in our spare room, I snuck downstairs and booted up the game. My heart pounded as I played. I was desperate to find some sort of clue, something that could help me help Aaron. But after 2 solid hours, nothing. I was completely able to come away from it and go to sleep. That was last night, and today, Aaron is still online. At this current time, he's clocked almost 72 hours, and I don't know what to do. If he's not using the bathroom, I doubt he's eating or drinking, and I'm worried he's going to die. I was going to call the police today, or an ambulance or someone, but I wanted to help him without retorting to that, so I made a stupid decision. I decided to play a little more. I don't know why I thought it would help. I had some weird urge, and I thought maybe I missed something last night because I was tired. Maybe I'd see something and I could save him, but I couldn't. I played for 5 hours straight today. The reason I'm writing this all down is because I'm stuck to my gaming chair. I can't move, and my whole body is locked. I can't turn my neck to look anywhere but my PC. I've been trying to resist the urge to play for so long, but it's only a matter of time. Please, someone help me. I can see the cables moving underneath my skin, and I'm starting to get a pain in my wrist. A couple days ago, I received an unmarked envelope in the mail. I know what you're thinking. I should have reported it to the police, or at the very least, I shouldn't have opened it. But I was curious. And like most humans who should know better, but don't, I needed to feed my curiosity. What I found was an old Kodak photo, like the ones taken with a disposable camera and have developed at Walmart. In the photograph was the most disturbing looking doll I had ever seen. Its face and hands were pale, almost fleshy looking. Its mouth was open, as if in a permanent scream, and looked as if it had a single tooth protruding from the top. Its hair looked like it was made of feathers, black feathers, like from a crow or blackbird. What disturbed me most was the eyes. There were two dark green rage-filled eyes. I know that sounds crazy, but the doll looked angry. Angry at whomever was taking the photo. Those eyes seemed to pierce through the camera and the photograph. I couldn't stand to look at it for too long. I flipped the picture over. There were some symbols scrawled on the back that I didn't understand. It looked as if it were written in a different language. Below the symbols was a phrase written in English. May you never get a full night's sleep until you slumber in death. As I read the words, my heart quickened. Jumbled thoughts raced in my head. Why would someone send this to me? Was it some idea of a joke to freak me out? Was someone mad at me? Maybe it was a mistake. Either way, if the intention was to scare me, it certainly worked. I did end up calling the police. An officer stopped by, took my statement, and confiscated the photo. Other than that, there wasn't much they could do, if there was no return address. He also lectured me on the dangers of opening an unmarked package. I knew the dangers, but didn't care at the time. The rest of the day, I did the best I could to get my mind off that stupid doll. But no matter what I did, or who I saw, I couldn't shake it from my mind. As night approached, I became restless. Before settling into bed, I made sure the locks on my doors and windows were secure. I even went so far as to do a once-over of my apartment, checking all closets, looking under my bed, and even peeping behind the shower curtain. I was being paranoid. Despite all my precautions, I still didn't feel comfortable enough to sleep. I read, I watched YouTube videos, I even started a Disney movie on Netflix. Anything to get the fright out of me. A few hours later, I was able to relax enough to sleep. I wasn't asleep long when I heard a creaking noise. It sounded like a door, my closet door. I immediately straightened up and fumbled for my night side lamp switch. I clicked it once. Nothing. Panicking, I clicked it 2 more times. Still nothing. It was pitch black and I felt extremely vulnerable, in the middle of the dark room with an open closet. I reached for my phone and opened the flashlight app. The small light scanned the room as I checked every corner, every hump of clothing, and every shadow that resembled a dark figure lurking in my room. As I shined the light toward the closet, I hesitated. The door was creaked slightly open. I would have to walk over there to see what was inside. I sat there frozen for a long time, hearing nothing but my heartbeat echo in my ears. As a rule, I always made sure my closet door is shut tight before I went to bed. A product of childish fears, the boogeyman we subconsciously take with us into adulthood. The same reason I won't hang my foot off the bed. I thought of the phrase written on the back of the picture, the one I could understand, may you never get a full night's sleep. Whoever sent this to me was getting exactly what they wanted, I wasn't sleeping. I was scared. This was their intention. I was letting this person's threat get the better of me. In that moment, I was no longer scared, but furious. I was a smart, logical person. Why was I acting like a child? That anger was enough to get me out of bed and throw the closet door open. I clicked on the lights. Nothing, of course. I must have forgotten to shut the door. I crawled back into bed, no longer convinced anything was out to get me. I wasn't quite yet asleep when my body twitched, an action that happens when I'm half asleep and half awake. Annoyed, I started to roll over to my other side, when a slight movement at the foot of my bed caught my eye. I turned my head, still in a sleepy daze to the source of movement. That's when I saw it. The doll. The goddamn doll. The exact one from the picture. I stared at it in disbelief. Its angry eyes, its gaping mouth, its mangled hands. It stood on the end of my bed, towering over me like a great deity. The only thing I can remember feeling was terror. Sheer terror. Although that seems like such a weak word compared to the way my body and mind and soul felt looking at the doll. I thought to myself, was this really happening? As if in a response, the doll took a step forward, and I could feel the mattress sink under its weight. I tried to move, but my body was locked in place. No matter how much I willed my limbs, they just wouldn't budge. I needed to get out of here, to throw the doll against the wall. Something, but I couldn't. I started to scream. I felt my mouth open and my lungs draw in air, but the only sound that came out was a tiny squeak. It was as if my scream was stuck in my chest. I could feel pressure in my chest. The doll advanced towards me, and I could only watch as it made its way, hands reaching out to me. It put its cold hands on my cheeks, and drew its distorted face close to mine. It let out a guttural scream. The tightness in my chest turned to a sharp pain as it wailed at me. The doll then raised its hand over its head, as if to strike me. I closed my eyes, expecting the final blow. A few moments passed and nothing happened. I could no longer feel the weight of the doll on my bed. I peeked my eyes open. It was gone. It must have just been a dream. When I sat up, the pain in my chest overtook me once again. I could barely breathe, and every attempt to catch my breath made the pain worse. It spread into the whole left side of my body, my jaw, my neck, my arm. It was as if an invisible knife had struck my heart. It was at that moment when I thought I knew what was going on. Was I having a heart attack? I began to feel lightheaded, so I dialed 911. The ambulance was there in what seemed like seconds. The paramedics had to bust down my door. I saw them rush into my room, and that was the last thing I remembered. When I came to, I was in the hospital. The doctor overseeing my care confirmed my fears. I did indeed have a heart attack. It made no sense. I ate healthy, I exercised regularly, and there was no family history of heart disease. Why did this happen? I could tell from the doctor's face that he was just as confused as I was. After a series of diagnostic tests, everything came back normal, even my EKG. My heart was in good shape, but it had gone under some stress. My doctor then asked if I suffered from anxiety, or if I was angry or frightened before the episode happened. I thought back to my dream with the doll. Although it still didn't seem like a dream, I could still see and hear everything that happened so clearly. I knew what caused my heart attack. It was the doll. It stopped my heart. There was no other explanation. The doctor knew something was wrong. "What is it?" he asked. "Anything you could tell us could possibly prevent this from happening again." If I told him about the doll, he would think I was crazy and prescribe me meds as fast as he could, maybe even put me in an institution for a while. I shook my head and he looked disappointed. "I've been staying with my parents for the past few days, per the doctor's request. I haven't let myself fall asleep. I know the doll will come back if I do. I'm afraid that if I fall asleep, I'll never wake up again." I am currently in upstate New York, in a facility which I can assume is for severely delusional individuals. I am not that. I'm not crazy. I'm only able to access a computer for 15 minutes a day, so I will try and give you an idea of how this nightmare began, and why you should never, never take a glitch in the Matrix you experience seriously. I know what you're all thinking, but let me tell you my story and just try and keep an open mind. I've considered myself a fairly active person since I started participating in sports at a young age. As I grew older and my competitive youthfulness began to fade, I would find myself in the gym more often than I would find myself at a rec softball game or a match of tennis. Competition requires direct contact and conversation with others, which is something that I had success with when I was younger, but has faded with maturity. My normal gym routine is to go in and do 45 minutes working whatever muscle group I am focusing on that particular day, followed by about a 1.5 mile run a day. I would try and do this 5 times a week. I've been a member of my local It's Fun to Stay at the for approximately 6 years. I know everyone by their name, and despite little communication, I receive warm smiles and pleasant indifference from most staff. When I walked into my gym on May 4th, something just felt off. Well, clearly something was off. I have no idea how to physically describe the energy in the room, but it felt as if I had just shown up to a funeral in all white, boasting champagne and balloons. All eyes were on me. I cannot emphasize enough that when I say all eyes, I mean all eyes. The entrance of the gym opens up to a lobby with a small indoor play area for children, small slides and tiny human-sized hamster tubes for all sorts of scrambling and crawling line the walls, and protruded approximately 10 feet into the lobby. As I'm walking in, I hear every conversation stop. A small 4-year-old girl no more than 15 feet away immediately stops crying and removes her hand from her dismembered leg. Stares. I hit a hard 360, assuming that was some kind of event happening behind me, which had captured the attention of literally every person in the room. In the half a second it took me to look back to the lobby, everyone had returned entirely to what they were doing prior to my entrance. The little girl had resumed crying, and it sounded as if she had never stopped. Okay. At this point I know something is off, but I chalked it up to my narcissistic personality. I loved all eyes on me, and I assumed everyone was just checking me out as I sauntered in. Sure, fine. I start to walk toward the counter where Jim, the front desk assistant, would normally take a scanner to my keychain to ensure I wasn't some sort of identical imposter. Today he was the imposter. At a very minimum, for the past 6 years, Jim would look up at me, smile and offer, "Have a good workout," before scanning my card. Often we would talk about how great the particular day was, or perhaps even a quick sharing of weekend plans if I wasn't in a rush to get home. Jim and I were not strangers. Jim holds out his hand with the scanner ready, never breaking eye contact with the computer screen in front of him. I obligingly hold up my card, but Jim makes no attempt to try and scan it. He appears motionless, but I don't care, nor do I consider that there is anything extraordinary going on. Would you? There is a youth men's club after all. They've been around since the beginning of America or something. It's a family place. I reach out and place my card under the scanner and head upstairs to the weights because that's why I'm here. No more eyes on me, not that I care. The weight room was composed of a line of about 30 treadmills, followed by a line of about 20 ellipticals, all on the right side of the room. On the left side, the benches, dumbbells, and resistance machines were found. In the back of the room was open for calisthenic auxiliary exercises on mats, push-ups, sit-ups, leg lifts, etc. The gym was empty by standard of a typical weekday at 5 p.m., rush hour for the gym. Maybe 8 other people inside the weight room excluding myself. I found myself excited at this though. I looked around with eager eyes at the openness of the machines, knowing that I could go at whatever pace I wanted, and use whatever machine I pleased. I didn't think about spending 3 minutes looking for a parking spot before I came in, because the lot was so crowded. Excited me goes over to the seated overhead press. Essentially just a seat with a metal bar in front of it, the bar being approximately 4 inches in front of my face and 2 inches below my chin. You try and push the bar above your head while keeping your back pressed against the seat. It's a nice shoulder workout, which was what I focused on that day. First set went great, then it happened. I load up my second set, feeling the rhythm of the electronic mix I was listening to. I sit down and start to hype myself up, feeling the beat start to build up, slowly incorporating a collection of hi-hats and bass lines, and bass drums, and kicks and snares and synths. With all of them mixing and merging, getting faster and faster, and more prevalent, until with perfect timing, it pauses in a glorious moment of perfect silence. I lock my hands onto the metal bar and push up as the instrumentation returns, in a cataclysmic explosion of noises only a computer could love. I work through my first rep, and as I'm coming down, the bar slips from my hands. Now, I'm not a huge person, but I had been working out for 6 years now, so this was a considerable amount of weight that was now mid-air, plummeting directly from my groin and legs. I watch as the bar travels in slow motion toward my unprotected body, thinking to myself that this was going to be a disaster. Right as it makes contact, I feel an overwhelming shot of pain in my right leg, which I could easily identify as the snapping of my femur, probably the most painful possible break. The sound was wretched. Never had I heard a snap so soulful, so full-bodied and dense, so deep and terrifying. I opened my mouth and went to let out a huge scream, but instead was met with what felt like an absence of vocal cords. Nothing but that raspy, sandpaper feeling in my throat that accompanies an allergic reaction to food, or drinking something that is too hot too quickly. The bar fell to my lap quickly, but not as quickly as the snap back to me holding the bar above my head. I look up and see my own hands holding the same bar, with the same weight that I had initially loaded, slowly moving downward toward the rack, and then finally placing it on the protruding metal shelves that hold the bar when it's not in use. Only I wasn't present for that movement. As soon as I felt the weight of the bar go limp, I sprang out of my seat. I was in control now. I looked around to see if anyone happened to be looking in my direction. Even if the other gym goers were wearing headphones, I knew they would have heard that snap. Almost all of the other people present that day happened to be on treadmills which face windows looking outward, toward the parking lots, away from the free weights and machines behind their backs. The only other person utilizing machines was a girl on a leg press, which also happened to be facing the other direction. Great. I stopped and thought. The sound, the pain, watching the bar plummet at me. I knew it to be real, and I knew it happened. I watched it happen. I felt my right leg snap, and I felt the strain in my vocal cords as they attempted to produce an audible sound. I heard that disgusting snap. At this point, people in the gym started to give me glances. I had sprang from my seat and made some noise while looking around, but the majority of the people in the gym were wearing headphones, so it was a bit odd. But I just assumed they had heard me get up. I thought about how I could confirm to myself that this actually happened. I needed to see it. Wait, there are cameras in the gym. To ensure people are cleaning up their messes. That could show me dropping this bar on myself, maybe. And then I could confirm that this had actually happened, and it wasn't some extremely vivid hallucination. I head downstairs, with a few pair of eyes watching me, and march to the front desk. Hey Jim, any chance I could see the security feed of the weight room about 5 minutes ago? Why? Jim was a friendly face in the gym, offering warm reception to just about any request you could make of him. This curt response was startling, and despite my attempt at making eye contact, Jim never wavered from the screen. He was glued. I could have sworn that I dropped the bar on myself, breaking my leg, and I want to see if it shows that on the feed. I replied hesitantly. That's impossible. You walked down here, didn't you? As Jim offered this retort, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and a deep cool breeze overcame the room. He looked up at me and offered an inviting, soft smile, which I deemed to be genuine. The smile was genuine at least, but his eyes. It wasn't that there was something necessarily wrong with them, but this eerie feeling that Jim was looking through me enveloped my psyche, and for a moment I swear I could hear Jim pleading for me to help him, all while holding that delicate, tempting smile. I suppose you're right. I conceded with dismay. Whatever was going on had got the best of me at this point, and I was just about ready to bolt for the door when Jim spoke once more. You walked down here, he said quite matter-of-factly. I looked once more at him and noticed that his smile had begun to contort itself on its face. I watched with my own eyes as the sides of his mouth crept upward, slowly emitting blood, making him look like the Joker. Only it wasn't one singular laceration. Instead they grew outward like arteries on a river, mirroring the veins, one would expect in a normal human face. Pin-sized orifices on his nose expanded, swallowing the flesh in their place, and began to ooze brown, chalky liquid, which flowed down into a jagged, knife-like point that now occupied his nose. As I looked on as his eyes began to melt back into his head, pulsating as the life left them, revealing void eye sockets, terrorizing, bottomless, black holes that were impossible to avert my own eyes from. They pulled me in with soft whispers of solitude. "Have a good day," he exclaimed, "and see you soon." And just as quickly as the bar had dropped on my lap, Jim returned to his enthusiastic, welcoming state. I rubbed my eyes and looked at him once more, as I tried to flush the imprint of that demonic figure out of my head. "Thanks. You too." As I turned toward the front door, I felt the pressure of everyone's eyes on me again. I felt that same indiscernible physical aura looming in the air, slowly encapsulating my consciousness, lugging me into the depths of its own determined path. It was something. I flexed every muscle in my body as I tried to take one more step towards the door, but I collapsed and blacked out. When I woke up, I knew I was done for. Something was covering my head so I couldn't make out what was around me, and handcuffs kept my hands together behind my back, so I couldn't reach up to remove it. I tried to tilt my head back and forth to get a view of the floor, but apparently this bag was covering my whole head. Almost as soon as I started moving, I felt a coarse hand grab me by the elbow and start to lead me downstairs slowly, making sure I had my footing right before proceeding. The hand pushed me into a room where I again blacked out. When I woke up for the second time, I was surrounded by clangs and clings of metal hitting metal, and unfortunately, now I could see. I was in a room approximately 6 by 6, leather straps holding my wrists and ankles in place. Above me was a single source of light, which appeared to be natural, but at the same time, I felt as though I was deep underground. In front of me was a table with a manila envelope on it, labeled "Classified," and directly across from me sat a man, I'm assuming, in an all-black one-piece bodysuit, covering his face and every part of his body. I felt safe assuming he was a man, because he spoke with a booming voice promptly after I regained consciousness. "You must be extremely confused and concerned. Relax. Everything is going to be just fine. My name is Dao, and I am here to help you." I quickly replied, "If you're supposed to help me, why am I restrained?" Dao paused, but clearly he had heard this question before. "This is going to be extremely difficult, but you had your second manic episode last week when you were at the gym. Here's the police report detailing what happened." He opened the envelope and pushed a single piece of paper toward me. It read, "The perpetrator entered the scene at 5 p.m. and began vigorously ogling everyone. Crying hysterically that they were going to get him, he ran upstairs into the weight room before maintenance could tackle him and threw a bar on a man attempting to utilize the seated overhead press, breaking his right femur. He ran back downstairs and attempted to try and take the front desk assistant's computer before he fell to the ground in cardiac arrest. Seeing as he carries a severe dissociative personality, no charges are being pressed at the time. We wish him the best with a speedy recovery, and hope he can live more than 4 years without an episode this time around." Dao noticed me look up, so he was safe in assuming that I had finished reading what I was certain to be a cover-up. I know what I saw. I know it. I know you won't believe me, but you had a very similar instance about 4 years ago in the same place. You tried to attack and kill a small girl, but we managed to get you off her after you had broken her leg. Oh, how convenient that I had seen a girl with a broken leg. That's really supporting the story here, boys, I thought to myself. Dao stopped. He knew that he wasn't going to fool me. I knew too much. Your last treatment was approximately 3 months long, and we thought we had you completely medicated and functional. This time around will probably be similar. As he said that, I watched his mouth start to creep into that wretched V shape. I gazed on as brown pus flushed itself from orifices on his nose, and finally looked back into those deep, ominous sockets that I longed to accompany. I tried to let out a scream, but my vocal cords felt as though they were gone. "You walked down here, didn't you?" Dao said with a smile.